I'm Anderson, day 80 of 100 Days of Thankfulness. Today we're talking about the importance of self-control, which is the ninth fruit of the Spirit. I know we're doing things a little out of order here, but I'm going to do the seventh fruit of the Spirit in a couple days because my son got home late tonight and went straight to bed. So we'll touch base with Tim again in a couple days. And for self-control, I also want to talk about why I'm so thankful for psychologist Dr. James Dobson, who is the original founder of Focus on the Family as well as the founder of Family Talk. But to begin with, I'd like to start with reading a couple Bible verses on self-control. The first one is 1 Corinthians 9:24 through 27. It says, "Do you not know that those who run in a race all run, but only one receives the prize? Run in such a way that you may win. Everyone who competes in the games exercises self-control in all things. They then do it to receive a perishable wreath, but we an imperishable. Therefore I run in such a way as not without aim. I box in such a way as not beating the air." So that talks about just being very intentional with your self-control. And what do we mean by self-control? I have another Bible verse that pretty much covers the whole spectrum here. And this is in Titus verses 6 through 9. "An elder must be blameless, faithful to his wife, a man whose children believe and are not open to the charge of being wild and disobedient. Since an overseer manages God's household, he must be blameless, not overbearing, not quick-tempered, not given to drunkenness, not violent, not pursuing dishonest gain. Rather, he must be hospitable, one who loves what is good, who is self-controlled, upright, holy, and disciplined. He must hold firmly to the trustworthy message as it has been taught, so that he can encourage others by sound doctrine and refute those who oppose it." So is that all? Yeah. It's kind of a big list. I kind of honed in on the very first thing that was mentioned there, which was how an elder must be blameless and faithful to his wife. And it talks about a man whose children believe. So it's really, that's all about the family. And in the 90s, when I had first become a Christian, I would, every week, I would receive an audio cassette tape that I would play over and over and over again, and it would be James Dobson, Focus on the Family, one of his radio broadcasts. And that really helped, early on as a young baby Christian, just learning the foundation of what it really means to live the Christian life. And it was like really reinforcing and strengthening my marriage. It was all about the marriage. It was all about the family. And, there's, even today, I still work with that. And that's like first and foremost, when I think about self-control, I think about, as the Christian leader of the household, the enormous responsibility that comes with that. And it's a responsibility towards my children, but it's also a responsibility towards my wife, that I need to be so many things to her, and I'm often feeling like I'm falling short in that regard. But that doesn't mean I should give up, There's this recent article from Family Talk where James Dobson writes, I'm just going to read this. "I used to enjoy fishing with my elderly father-in-law during the last 5 years of his life. My own dad had gone on to heaven by that time, and Joe and I had become great friends. On one occasion, we went to a scenic lake in the Sierras early one morning and rented rowboats. He was in one craft and I in another. We began paddling our separate boats side by side while simultaneously trolling our lines. It was a large lake and the wind was blowing briskly, making the waters choppy. Before long, Joe and I realized we were drifting apart. After about an hour, he wound up on the west bank, and I had drifted a mile away to the east. We couldn't even hear each other shouting. I sat there thinking about what had happened to us, and it occurred to me how relevant our situation was to many married couples. Often, two people who are deeply in love stand side by side at an altar and pledge before God to remain committed to each other for the rest of their lives. But when the honeymoon is over and they return to a daily routine, they get in separate rowboats and begin bouncing along a choppy sea. The pace at which they run, the pressures of living, and the lack of money cause them to drift in opposite directions. Before they know it, they are far apart and can't even hear each other's voices. It happens ever so quickly. I can so relate to that. I've got both Karen and I we're running a lot, and there's with that running, there's a lot of excitement, but there's also a lot of stress that comes with it, and that does impact our ability to find time with each other. So I'll continue. They had wanted to remain close, and they missed the romantic relationship that was once so precious to them. The wife is especially vulnerable to the changes that have occurred, but the wind and the waves take them in opposite directions. That is what happened to Shirley and me in our first years together. Early on, we were both teaching school, and I was carrying a heavy load in graduate school. I was studying at night, and Shirley was preparing for the next day. I suddenly realized that we were drifting away from each other. There was no danger to the marriage, but we were not as close as we had once been. That night, I asked my wife to take a walk with me. There, under a bright moon, I told Shirley that we were too busy for each other, and I didn't like it. I announced that I was going to take a semester off from my professional training so that we could spend those months reconnecting. It was one of the wisest decisions I ever made. By putting Shirley first, we bonded in a way that rekindled the romantic fires. On August 27th of this year, we celebrated our 55th wedding anniversary, and yes, our boats are still sailing side by side. I would rather spend an evening with Shirley than any other human being in the world. So, wow, 55 years, and for him to say that's amazing. So I hope you can see why I'm so thankful for Dr. James Dobson. Besides, having learned so much from him when I was a young Christian, I'm still learning quite a bit from him about just practical advice for what I can do to be a better husband, a better father, and just a better man living for God. So thanks again to Dr. James Dobson.